Right, you guys, welcome to part 2 of our HTPC home theatre build, and in this one we're going to be putting together our machine with all the parts that we talked about in part 1. So I'll do my best to cover everything I can and video what I can, and hopefully you can see everything. Now obviously there is different types of memory and different sockets to take into account when you're building yours, so you can't sort of use this as a how-to guide. It's more of a how I put mine together. Okay, I will be doing one of those types of videos later on. So let's get started with this one. We're going to be starting off with the motherboard, and we'll put everything together and hopefully everything turns out okay. So here we go. So this is the GIGABYTE motherboard, and I'm going to be using this in our build. It's the FM2 socket for the AMD A10 processor, and we've got our IO shield here which we're going to be using, and also we've got some SATA cables here. There's 4 of them there. You can add more if you wish, purchase more. And we've got our user manuals, which is going to be very important to us later on in the build. So let's pull out our actual board here. This is our motherboard in our anti-static bag. Now if you want to use an actual anti-static wristband, you can do. You might not see me wearing one, and that's because I'm standing on an anti-static mat, which means I don't have to wear one. So let's pull this out and put this onto our anti-static bag. And this is totally safe to do, and you can see the motherboard itself in all its glory, and we're going to be using that. So there we have our SATA ports here. We've got 8 of those on the board, which is going to be taking all our hard drives and our devices, and also we've got some USB ports in case we want to put some more USBs in there, and also our audio port. It's a spare slot there if you want to put a TV card, which I will be doing in mine, and also a room for 2 graphics cards if you wish on this board. I'm not going to be using those. And then we've got our memory slots, 4 memory slots, and also our CPU part where we're going to put our CPU. There's the actual CPU fan and the system fan socket there. Okay, so let's have a look at where we're going to stick our motherboard into our IO shield, and you can see that we have our audio there to plug our audio in. We've got some USB ports there, and also our Ethernet connector, and also USB 3, HDMI slot, also our VGA and also DVI out slot, and our PS2, and also 2 more USB ports. Okay, so let's start off with the first component. I'm going to be putting in the CPU first, the A10 5800K AMD processor. This has got its own graphics chip built into this. Let's pull out the heatsink here, and the actual CPU, and the user manual. So we won't need that user manual, but there's the actual CPU itself and the sticker. And there you can see the pins on the back of the CPU. Now if you're going to be using the stock heatsink here, which I'm using, you'll see it's got its own compound already on there, its own fan on top. Now you can change this if you wish. I'm going to be using that in my build for the time being. Okay, so what we need to do is lift up this little bar here. This what locks the actual CPU into position. You can see it slide back there, and then we need to get our CPU. You'll see a little tiny triangle on the left hand corner here, and this little triangle, there'll be a little triangle on the actual CPU itself as well, and you need to make sure they're matched together, and that's the right way to put the CPU in. So let's have a look at the CPU itself here. You can see that little gold triangle. That's the actual gold triangle that needs to go into that corner, just like so. And there's one on the back as well here. You'll see it on the back. Now just drop that in. You don't want to push it or force it in there. And then pull the bar down. You might find that to be a bit tight, but that locks it into position. Okay, so let's put our heatsink on there now, and you can see the heatsink here with the compound on it. Don't want to be touching that with your fingers. Now you could rub that off and use your own compound if you wish, Arctic Silver or something like that. And then we've got the connector that goes to the board, the one that says CPU fan, which is on the left. The one next to it is the system fan for the fan on the case. So we're going to get this into position. Just drop that into position, and you'll see on the bracket there's a little hole in the bracket, and there's some little lugs or feet on the side of the mounts where you put the actual bracket onto. Now I've got the first one in place, you can see there. All we need to do now is push down on the right hand side and push in, and then lock it down like so. And that should be nice and tight, and that will press down onto the CPU. Then we need to put our 4-pin fan in. Now if there's only 3 pins on the board, you just have to put the actual 3 pins in. There's a little guide there to stop you from messing it up. So that's the actual heatsink in place now. Let's have a go at putting some of this memory in. I'm going to be using G-Skill here, and you can see DDR3 1, 3, 2 and 4. If you get your manual, open this up, it will tell you where to place your memory and what slot to place it into if you don't know. And this manual is going to be useful for this type of stuff. So you want to keep it to hand, and you can see the memory right there, what channel 0 and 1. So this one and this one. Just pull the little feet down. And get your memory. We're going to be using Ripjaw's G-Skill, and look for that little notch. And on the board you'll see a little notch as well. Just push that into the little channel there. It's like a little channel at the back. You need to just push that memory in. And then push down until you hear it snap. That's the first one in. Let's do the second one. So you'll see a little ridge on the back here, and this is what needs to go into that end part there. You just slot that in like so, and then into the other side, and then just push her down until you hear it crack, and then push the little feet up, and that's that done. Okay, so let's put our IO shield in. I'm going to put this into the back of the computer case here, as you can see, and it comes in from the inside of the case. So we'll just take this out of the plastic. Now you want to make sure you get this the right way around, and there should be a little ridge around the inside of it. You just push it into there and push in. Now if you find it to be a bit tight and it won't click in, you can use the back end of a screwdriver if you wish, and that's what I'm going to do. It just doesn't want to go in. Just get the back end of a screwdriver and push, and you should feel it just clip in. And that's okay. That seems to be in okay now. So let's have a look at the motherboard riser screws here. We're going to put those into the case. Now they're normally already in the actual case itself. You may need to move these about and adjust them. This one seems to be a bit tight, so I shall get a pair of long nose pliers, or you can use a mini adjustable spanner, whatever floats your boat really. Just loosen it off for a little bit so we can put them into our position for our board. Now this is probably set for a full ATX board here. I need to just set that up for a Micro-ATX board. We just stick that one in there, loosen the other one off. Don't over tighten these. Now you need to have these inside the actual case here. If you haven't got this and you try to screw the motherboard straight down to the case itself, you're going to get grounding issues, which is a common mistake for people. You just want to make sure that you get all these into position. And tighten those up a little bit with your fingers. Just don't over tighten those. And once we've done that, we can then offer up the actual board. Now you will get some extra screws here with the case, and you can use these to actually fix down the board. So you can see I've got my bolts inside. And what we're going to do is grab hold of the actual heatsink here, and then we're going to offer up the motherboard. So we're just going to get this into position here and then offer this up. You can come in at an angle. Now I've removed the actual hard drive caddy bay there. Just move these cables out of the way and then just lightly push forward until it goes in, and rest it down onto the actual riser screws there. Now once that's in position, we can then tighten these down with some screws. Now these should come with your case, and you can see I removed the actual hard drive bay there so I could get the actual board in without any issues. So they're the screws we're going to be using, which come with a case. Now don't over tighten these, otherwise when you go to loosen them off you'll have trouble releasing them from the actual brass screw itself. So we'll just put these in. You can see I'm just using a normal screwdriver here. I've seen people using electric screwdrivers. I've never really used one, but if that's what you like to do, then you can always use one of those if you wish. So we'll just go around and put these screws in. It helps if you've got a magnetic screwdriver here. You can just put the screw straight on the end and then tighten them up. Now what I normally do is put all the screws in lightly and then just do a final little turn on all the screws at the end. And you can probably notice that there's the actual power supply is already installed, and the reason why is because I forgot to actually record the putting in of the motherboard. I forgot to push the record button. But you don't miss nothing, so I actually took everything out and re-recorded it so you don't miss it. But it's pretty straightforward. But you can see that power supply looks a bit messy with all those cables, and that's because it's not a modular power supply. So I will address that issue and replace it with something else a bit smaller. So as you can see here, we're just putting that last screw in, and now we're going to put the power supply in. So there's our actual instruction manual, and this gives us all the information of our power supply. And there's our kettle lead to power it up. Now power supplies are a very important choice. Don't skimp on power supplies. Try to use the right power supply for the right build. And this is a good quality power supply. It's well built. But there's some El Cheapos out there that will not do you any good at all. So spend the money on a decent power supply. As you can see, this is a Cooler Master bronze 750 watt GX. It's very heavy and it's very well built. Some of these cheap ones are very light, and as you can see inside through the honeycomb part there, you can see, and there's the actual screw holes, which is pretty standard for most power supplies. And then there's your power button switch, and also where you put your actual power into. And these normally go one way. And you can see inside there, it's quite a good quality power supply. It's a bit over the top for what I need. So let's offer it up to the actual case here. And then get some screws. Now these normally come with the actual power supply. You just screw them in. Pretty straightforward really. But don't over tighten these as well. Okay, so I normally go diagonal to that first screw, and it's handy to have a magnetic screwdriver here. And then just tighten that up a little bit. You may have to put a little bit of pressure on to line up the hole. Some of these cheaper cases, this was not a cheap case, but some of the cheaper cases, you'll come across different issues for different cases. We'll just tighten this up. Now we'll swap this power supply out. As I said, it's just too messy inside the case. Once I've finished, there's too much cabling everywhere. Let's get this last screw in. I'm having a bit of trouble with that one, and I'll try another screw and see if I can get that in. Okay, so let's put that screw in. Now you're going to find that sometimes you're going to come across little problems. It's just quite common with building your own PC. Okay, so that's the power supply now in place, and I'm not liking the look of those cables. There's just a wodge of cables there that I'm going to have to do something about. So we'll try and push those into the case, and there's just nowhere to hide that amount of cables in this case. And you're going to find that you'll come across these types of problems when you're purchasing cases. You don't know what the case is like until you start actually building with it. So let's remove the actual hard drive caddy area here now, so we can actually get to the cabling. And I'm just going to undo these screws here so we can pull these two handles up, and there you can see the screws that we need to remove. There's 6 screws in all. So we'll just take these off. And then we should be able to pull that straight out. There's a couple on the front there you can see that we need to remove. And this is going to help us to be able to move around the case a little bit better. Now you can take all this out right at the very beginning if you wish, and that's what I'd advise you to do in these small cases. Take all the fans off, everything off, so it gives you plenty of room. So we're just going to pull this up now and take this straight out, which is a nice little feature of this case, and that gives us a lot more access to everything. So there you can see the actual DVD-ROM drive bays there, and they've got those little sliders on there. You can pull those off so they actually push on the button, so you don't have to take all the fascia off there. And there's the fans that will be blowing up to the actual hard drives, and there's a controller board there for the front, and there's the actual cables. So that's where the actual drive, DVD-ROM drive or Blu-ray player will go, and there's hard drive space there, as you can see, and more hard drive space there, and that's the one I ended up using in the end. 3 drives will go in there. So let's get our drive out. I'm going to be putting just 1 drive in for the time being, because I'm still waiting for 2 more drives to be delivered. It's a 3 terabyte Barracuda drive. Now this will have its own anti-static bag in it, and we'll take this out. I had a bit of trouble with this 3 terabyte drive. It didn't like the actual motherboard. It wouldn't boot because it was plugged in. I had to build the operating system first, and then I plugged it in afterwards. So there you can see a 3.5 inch 3 terabyte Barracuda drive. Okay, so there's some important information here on the drive. You'll see the actual serial number, the model number, the part number, and the actual date, and that's the actual information that you're going to give to the maker of the drive if it fails and it's still under warranty. So let's just hover this up to the actual caddy here and see where we're going to be putting it. Now I'm feeling this location, but this did end up being a problem. Once I did install it there was an issue with the actual USB 3 port on the board. It was in the way, so I ended up moving it to the far right hand side. And this is the beauty of custom builds. You just trial and error really where you want to put stuff, and we'll put it in that location for now, but I did actually move it. Now you can see that rubber foam that's on the top and the bottom. That's the anti-vibration foam there, and you can actually put those in. Now you can imagine those all stacked up together right along there. I just can't see you getting that many drives in there without having too much cable for that case. And you can see the 3 screw holes at the top there. That's where we're going to fix the actual drive to, and there's 1 at the bottom. So just get the screws. You can see the screw holes. Line those up. So then once we get those screws in there, that'll be fixed. So you're going to face your own issues with your build if you've got different boards, different cases, as I said, and it's just sort of trial and error really. So let's get my screwdriver and some screws. I'm just going to screw those in. Now don't over tighten these again. It's not going to go anywhere. You just push those in, and these are the ones that come for this drive in this packet. They don't look like the standard hard drive screws that you normally use, but they're the ones that come for it. So I'll screw those in. Just slightly tighten those up a little tad, and then we'll flip that over and put 1 more screw in the bottom. So there's the actual bottom part there. You'll see a screw that just goes in there to hold it in its location to stop it moving. Now this will take a lot of hard drives, but we're going to have 3 in ours. And I'm going to flip this over. Okay, so let's have a go at putting the solid state drive in now. And this is the actual OCZ Agility 3. That'll do for what I need. It's just a small little drive, and this blister pack stuff is really nasty stuff. I'll cut this off. And inside you'll have just the manual, which you'll never read, and a sticker. If you wish to put it on your case, you can. I didn't bother. And the actual solid state itself. Now, I'm not really happy at where these locate in this drive. If you have two DVD-ROM drives in there, you're supposed to put these here side by side. But the problem is, you're going to have two drives and one pushes right up against these, which was not an ideal position for me, really. So I dropped the drive down a bit, the Blu-ray drive below this. This is just 4 screws in here. But again, you don't see these things until you start building the machine itself, and this was one of pet hates that I had for this case. It wasn't my ideal position for it, to be honest. I think it would have been better if they reduced the amount of 3.5-inch drives and made some space down there rather than have it above the DVD-ROM drive or Blu-ray player drive. Now I put 2 screws in temporarily, and you can see it sitting there, and there's another one that you can put right beside it if you wish. Okay, so let's put our DVD-ROM drive Blu-ray player in, and you can see here there's room for 2 of those in here. Now there was really no space to put it on the top. I really didn't like it at all, and you'll see what I mean in a second. I didn't edit it out. I just wanted to show you how tight it was against this drive. It was really tight against it, and it didn't look nice at all, especially if you put 2 drives in there. They seem to have crammed a load of stuff in when they could have made more space here, but you can see how that sits right up against that drive there. In my opinion, that's not ideal for me. I didn't want that. So now I had to drop that drive down to the second bay. You can imagine having 2 solid state drives in there with that pushing up against it. There's just no room for movement there at all. So they could have probably given up on a few hard drive spaces there to make room for that. This is quite common with custom builds. You come across these issues. All looks good in the glossy mag, but as soon as you actually get to build the thing, you come across issues like this, and this is quite common. So that was a real no-no for me. So I'll try to show you what I showed you there, and then I'll put it into the ended up put it in the second bay. But I just wanted to show you that part. So let's take this out. It's really tight, as you can see. And we'll just stick that in the second bay there. And we'll push that down. So there was a couple of little issues with this case that I didn't like, and that was one of them. And once I offer this up and push it back, we can screw that up. Okay, so we just need to fix a couple of screws in here. It's pretty tight in there, so 2 will probably hold it really. So I'll just stick a couple in for now. Now you can adjust these later on. Once you offer it up to the actual case, you may need to slide this backwards and forwards until you get it into place, so the actual eject button works properly. So we'll just tighten these up a little bit. Now there's no screw holes on the other side. Again, just don't over tighten these. So that's now the actual drive in position. So let's have a look at the actual fan here. We've got a fan in this location. I'm just going to show you this part here. And this was very tight up against the actual bay there once I got the drive in. It just didn't like it there. So I'm just going to remove this out of the way for now. And I think I'm going to move it to the right hand side. I only want 1 fan in here for the time being, because I want to keep the sound level to a minimum. So I'll just remove this out. And this is another tip, you can remove all these at the very beginning if you wish. Just saves you having to keep doing it later on. That's what I generally do. I generally clear everything out of the case, remove all stuff that will get in the way. I was trying to save time here, but it ended up costing me more time in the end. Okay, so let's offer this actual hard drive dock back up. Can't think of a name to call that really, but we'll just offer this up here. There you go. There's a couple of other things I noticed. Once that's in location, you can't plug in the 24-pin connector into the actual board there. You can see the drive is right across. Let's just offer this fan back up. We'll tighten this back up into its location. I did try to put it into that other location, but it was very, very tight. This is quite common for these types of builds. You do come across issues. Could probably shave a bit of the plastic off at the back if it was the case. It's only just slightly touching, but I'll screw these in. Now again, for me, the object to this case is to try and keep it as quiet as possible, and I may even put a Corsair water block on the actual CPU, just so you can't hear nothing. And I will get a fanless power supply, so that means there's less noise, and it won't need a lot of fans in here because there's not much else going in. The CPU's got its own graphics on it as well, so that's all a plus. Let's just stick the actual filter back on. Okay, that's on. Okay, so let's have a look at what we've done so far. I've added a couple of extra screws onto the actual drive itself here, that little solid state, to just keep that in place, because I only put 2 screws on there, and you can see down there everything's quite tight there, with the drive and everything all pulled together. Now this drive, you can see the actual bay at the end there. That's where I ended up putting my drive, and I will put 3 drives inside there. That's where I think I'm going to put them, and I will put a fan underneath there as well. So that's the location I'm going to be putting it, and you can see there is no room for that 24 pin under there. You have to lift all that off, and you can see the amount of cables here, and we'll sort all these cables out, and this will be a much better build if that was a modular power supply. So we'll just get these cabling sorted out. So I'm just going to undo this cable tie here, so I can put these cables into some sort of order. Okay, you can see there's a lot of cable in there, so we need to put the 24 pin in and the 6 pin into the actual, it might be an 8 pin actually, into the actual board as well. I'm not sure if it was a 6 or an 8. We'll section these off, put them over the side like so. Okay, now you can see there the actual USB 3 pin that goes to the board. It's right where that drive is, and I had to remove that drive and move it along. So here's the actual 24 pin here, and I will lift this hard drive caddy, I think I'll call it, out again, and I've never screwed it down in the first place just for that reason, so I can remove it again. and you won't get that under there, it's impossible, so you need to remove it out. So let's just get these into some sort of order so they're not all crossed before we plug them in. And this will clip down. You can see it's 20 pin and 24 pin. Just need to push the actual side of that together so it makes it a 24 pin, and it should clip straight on, and then you push it into the board. You can see you can't get to that, it's impossible, it's too tight, so we'll have to remove the top of that so we can get access to there. Okay, so let's remove this. Okay, so we've got that out, and now we can have full access to all the plugs, and we can see that that one's going into the board there. It's a 3 pin and it's a 4 pin on the motherboard. That's okay. There's a little actual row on the back of that plug. It will just slot straight into place. It'll only go into one place, so there'll probably be a pin missing, but that's okay. And that will go right next to the 24 pin connector there, as you can see. And we'll just stick that down there. Now, if you don't know where these go, you might want to get your manual out at this stage and have a little look, but you can see there's the pin missing. That's okay. And there's the 24 pin here that will go into the board. Just make sure they're all pushed together and then clip them straight down into place. Okay, that's in now. Let's have a look at the audio plug here, and you can see I'm going to put this into the actual board there. Just move this across. Now this will only go in one way, and you can see it's not going to go in this way, but I'll just flip it around and then just push that straight in. Okay, so that's one's in. Just push that into place. Okay, let's okay, so let's have a look at our 8-pin connector here. I'm going to plug this in. So I'll just get this and plug this into the corner of the board. It's important that you plug these in because a lot of people forget about these ones. And we're going to plug this in. You can't see what I'm doing here. It's right in the bottom right hand corner. Now these will only go in one way. Now you don't want to be using these 8 pins here. These are for graphics cards, so you don't want to be using that. Okay, it won't go in anyway. The 6 pin will probably go in, but the 2 won't. Okay, so we're in pretty good shape now. It's a bit messy still at the moment, but we'll sort this out in a second. Okay, so let's put the system fan on next to the CPU here. Just need to undo this little clip here. I'm going to push this next to the CPU. There should be another plug called system fan. There's 2 of them on this motherboard. Now some of them have more than that, but this only has 2. So again, just slot that in. It is a 4 pin and this is only a 3 pin, so it will still work. If you run out and you still want to use more and you've got more 3 pins to put in, you can use a converter. Okay, so for a bit of cable management, you can use cable ties, and they come in all different shapes and sizes and colours, as you can see some of these ones in front of us, and you can get these pretty much anywhere really, and these will help you tie all your cables into nice little bundles. Okay, now I'd advise you to make sure you got everything how you want it before you do that, because many a time I've done it and I've ended up having to cut them all off just to do stuff, and that's pretty common. So let's just tie this out of the way for now. It's a good way of tying cables back to keep them out of the way while you're working, as a temporary measure as well. I'll just tie this into a little bundle here. to keep these ones that I don't need out the way. These are the ones that are going to be left spare. Now if this was a modular power supply, these wouldn't be there because I wouldn't have to put them in the case. So let's have a look at that. There at the back, as you can see, there's a big wodge of cables there, and you can see they're in a nice little clump. Now we don't need those, so I could really, if that was modular, remove those from the case, but as you can see, because it's not modular, they're going to have to live inside there. So just cut that off for temporarily. Okay, so let's have a look at some of these other cables here. Now we need to put this USB 3 cable in to the board itself, and this will give us USB 3 at the front of the case, and there should be a little connector on the board. Now if yours doesn't have that, then this case comes with a little attachment that you can actually plug it into the USB part, so you still get USB 2, and you can see it right down on the bottom of the board there next to the RAM. It's that little blue connector, and we'll just plug this in. You should see a little notch in the side of that there. It says USB 3. Just be very careful. It doesn't really sit in there very well, but it's in there. You can see it wiggling about a bit. It's not very secure, but on there, it can easily wiggle loose. Okay, so let's put our cables to the board from the case. This is going to be our power switch, our reset switch, our hard drive, and also a speaker. And you can see it will mount to the board there. And this comes with every custom built case. And these are color coded, and also there'll be a plus and minus sign, so it helps you out. You can see there. Now you can use your manual here to actually help you where they go located on the board. If you see inside the manual, you'll see it, the configuration of where they need to go. Okay, it tells you a plus and minus, and if you look at the cable, there will be a plus and minus on the little cables. You can also use one of these, which you can get online. Some of the motherboards come with them, and you can push all your cables onto these if you've got fat fingers and you can't get your hands into the board. You can use one of those. I'll show you how that works. It's pretty straightforward. You just have to push these into the location where they go, and there'll be a little triangle on the back of these, and that's normally the plus sign. So you just push them on. Power lead plus and minus, and what that does is it allows you to configure these outside of the case, and then you just have to push the whole thing straight onto the board itself. It's a lot easier. So I'll just put all these into the right location. Pretty straightforward. You can use your manual as well, or you can use the actual cable itself, and you'll see on the back here there's a little triangle, and that normally means plus. You might not be able to see that, but that's the actual sign for plus. And that's the power switch there. There's the reset switch. You just push all these in. You don't have to use one of these. You can physically push them into the board itself as well. There's the hard drive. And then once you've get that, so once that's all wired up, you just need to offer that up to the actual board and slot that straight into place. I'll zoom in and just show you here. and then you just push that straight in like so. Pretty straightforward, easy to do. If you want to do it the other way, you can do. I'll unplug all these and I'll show you. Just pull these off. Like so. And manually plug them in yourself using your manual as reference. And they're all color coded, so you can't go wrong. So that's pretty straightforward really, this bit. Probably the most tricky bit really, to be honest, for most people. Okay, so that's the actual finishing result there of them plugged in. Now let's have a look at the actual 3-pin. There was a 3-pin connector that I had left on the board, and there was no place left to plug it into. So you can use these converters that I was going on about. These are a little 3-pin to Molex converter, which allows you to use a Molex connector to get power to that fan. Okay, this is quite common if you've got a lot of fans and there's only enough slots on the board for normally 2 or 3 at the most. Okay, you just unwrap these and then just plug that straight into a Molex connector. Pretty straightforward really. So there's the actual connector there. Now there is one downfall with these connectors. They can be a bit of a pain to push in, and that's because they're normally cheap and poorly made, but you can see here it's quite tricky to get in. You've got to get those little pins lined up with the holes, and these have always been tough to get in, so you just got to keep trial and error really, and try and line those pins up and push, and eventually we got it in. Okay, so let's offer up the actual hard drive bay caddy thing here and try and get that back into the case, so we can wire up the drive and everything else. This might take a bit of fettling to get in, but you can see there now where that drive is. It's right on where the actual USB 3 cable is. So we'll have to move that drive along. Okay, so that's what I was talking about a little bit earlier on, and this is quite common. You can see there it's in the way. It's right across where the cables go. So we'll remove that drive and put it either there or at the end. Okay, so that's now moved along. Now that's not locked down yet. I've not screwed that down just in case I have to move that anywhere. So just plug all these in now to give the actual Blu-ray player power, and we're also going to put the SATA connector in as well. Now I'm using one cable here from the actual Blu-ray player to the actual drive. Let's put in some SATA cables now. There's 4 of them here which come on a motherboard. Just feed those across from the actual Blu-ray player and the drives to the actual board itself. Okay, so we've got to put our SATA cables on now, and you can see these are the SATA cables, and all you need to do here is plug them into the Blu-ray player, the SSD drive and the 3 terabyte drive. Every device needs one of these, and we're going to plug those in and straight to the board, and also need power to that device. Now these have got a little notch inside the cable and only go in one way. Okay, you can see me plugging in one into the actual 3 terabyte drive. Now I'll have 3 drives in here eventually, and that means I'll have to use 3 SATA cables just for those drives. So you can see I've got one plugged straight into my SSD drive now and power, and that's going down to my Blu-ray player, and we're going to come out of there and go straight to the board, and you can see there's 3 SATA cables going into the board. Now there's a bit of cable management still needs to be done here. Once I replace this drive it will be a lot tidier, but it does look a bit of a mess under there. Now with this type of power supply I'm not sure you're going to be able to get all those drives in there really, to be honest, as you can see. So it will have to be a modular power supply that you use. But other than that, I will tidy those cables up a little bit more and use cable ties and tidy them back. I'm not going to bore you with that type of video, but you can see everything's all plugged in now, and we're ready to start installing in the next video. So I just need to do a bit more cable tidying up as best I can. And there's the actual finished result. As you can see, it looks quite nice inside there and tidied back. And I just need to get a few more bits and pieces for it, i.e. a TV card, and wait for that to be delivered, and also my other drives, and we are good to go. And that should be the end result. Looks pretty cool. So the next video is going to be installing Windows 7 and also FreeNAS and setting up XBMC, and also getting it onto the network, probably through VPN or something like that, and we'll set all that up, and hopefully that will be in the next installment. So stay tuned for that one. That'll be part 3 or part 4, depending if I have to split this video. So thanks again for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. My name is Brian from BriTechComputers.co.uk. If you enjoy these videos, hit that subscribe button and show support and rate and favourite my videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.